today is called Embracing the Blessings Within. And I remember I had a paradigm shift or an epiphany on the idea of blessing. Because it's really easy to curse. You know, it's really easy to go through our just resenting and cursing. But to bless is really something else entirely. And I started practicing it. I remember I wrote a blessing. Are you ready for a blessing? Okay, this is an original blessing that I came up with. May you be greeted by 1,000 smiles. May providence pave the way before you. May the gods of adventure decorate your path with interesting characters. You are surrounded by an orb of light that shines away all that is not of love, truth, and integrity. I started looking up blessings online, just to kind of do some. I was really looking for, archaic blessings that come from first world nations. Most of the blessings online I saw were songs. And there are vestiges left of ceremonies and rituals in which we bless children, babies. And we bless weddings with different rituals. There's also rituals if you have a new home, to bless the home before you would call a priest or a shaman to come bless the home. I know when I moved into my last home, I cleaned the wall. I didn't clean the ceiling, but I cleaned the whole thing and saged it and rang a bell and recited mantras in it just to bless the house that I was going to be living in, as if I'm trying to set a stream of positiveness where I could come home and feel that. But blessings in our society have become cliche. I mean, to bless someone is considered cliche. It's totally cool to curse. In fact, that becomes just a general way of conversation. You meet someone, hi, I'm this, let me complain about my things, and I'll wait politely while you complain about your things, and we can complain about the world in general, and this is all totally socially acceptable. But to bless, to talk about blessings, to look at someone and lovingly bless them, or even in our own minds, wish them the best, as though if you were a ship on the ocean, I would blow my breath into your sails. I would bring the clouds from the sky so you could chart your course. The idea of blessings have become cliche. I'm going to be relatively cheesy today, and I'm going to dedicate this poem to Dave, but it's a poem about how sincerity and open-heartedness have become cliche. Are you ready for a quick poem? Yes. She looked me straight into the eyes, and she said, yes. Billy. She had this way of saying my name as though it were an insult, all upon itself. She said, Billy, your poetry is so cheesy I could squirt it out of a can, and I had to think about that because I can be cheesy. But if I'm cheesy, I'm not Cheese Whiz. I'm not government cheese. I'm not American cheese. You can call me Colby. You can call me Jack. You can call me Brie, baby, but I am not Velveeta. This is some artisan cheese going on here. Simply because something is cliche makes it no less apropos. They just dropped a new episode or a new season of Love on the Spectrum. Has anyone seen Love on the Spectrum? Yeah, my partner made me watch that. And it is so precious watching people who are autistic, because they're so sincere, so authentic, so forthright. They can be brutally honest, but it is so innocent in their love and expression for each other. It's as though in their autism, they missed that conditioning that made us cynical. Rochelle was talking last week about tuna fish sandwiches, about how when we're kids, we're stoked to be alive. I remember, my kids, when they were younger, I could say, hey, let's go for an adventure. They're like, yeah, let's go for an adventure. And we're going grocery store shopping, but they're down to do it. And now I could say, hey, let's go hike Mount Everest. And they're like, yeah, I don't know. I can clearly remember a time when I was little, before I was crushed. I was like 4 or 5 years old. And I had to go to bed, and it was still light outside, and it just seemed like a travesty. I mean, it's light outside. There's still fun to be had. Why would I want to go to bed now? Why would God make it light right now if it was bedtime? And I can clearly remember waking up in the morning and just being stoked to have another day to be alive. Just to be stoked to be alive. And we kind of get crushed through school. It was probably like second grade before I'm waking up like, oh man, I got to go to school. The kids are mean. They expect me to sit in a desk all day? What is that? But the idea that slowly it got crushed out of me to where, life was a have to. And I'm chasing, trying to prove myself. My self-esteem comes from, how much people like me. And then depressed how much people don't like me. And with the idea of blessing, there's something really amazing about it because, so hang on, time out. It's like we give things meaning. We're the ones who give it meaning. One person can look at the mountains and see rocks and snow. And that is true. It's rocks and snow. Another person can look at the mountains and see majesty. Where does that majesty come from? I know a person, and I got to know this person well, but, they were a very disciplined person. I really admire that. And this person was, really into having everything set just perfectly in their house. The idea of taking a nap was a sin. This person had all their clothes neatly folded, sheets full, even fitted sheets full. I don't even try to fold fitted sheets. I just wad them up in a ball. But once in a while, I would see this person see a sunset or a baby smile, and they would just crack open and start bawling, as if they would just bawl for all the times they held it in tightly. In my life, I've learned the power of forgiveness. There's one person, there's a few. I had like a file in the back of my mind for people that I would never forgive. It was principally wrong to forgive them. This person was really cruel to me, really cruel. And even if they made me cry, they would laugh and mock me for crying. And this was a person that I could never forgive. But I went through this time where it was like, I really want to be happy. I really want to have that soft, cozy feeling in my heart. I really want to be able to be sentimental. I want to be able to appreciate this life. I know what it's like to be hard and tough. And I remember my father, he was a hard and tough man. And I could always tell that he wanted to love and didn't know how to. He wanted to apologize and didn't have the words. And I didn't want to live that life. And one of the exercises on forgiveness was to pray for this person, to pray for them. And I remember I began praying through gritted teeth. I felt like I was betraying the part of me in the past who swore I would never forgive. And what I noticed as I started to pray for them, and we're talking about I'm wishing all the things for this person that I wished I had. I hope this person has love. I hope they have success. I hope they find peace in their lives. I hope they find joy. And what I noticed is as I prayed these prayers, my heart started to open. I started to soften. And then I could bless this person. Blessing's kind of like gratitude. In order to bless something, we have to be able to open our heart. Living a life with an open heart, then we become blessings onto the world. To live our lives with, and it doesn't matter what you guys do, whether you're dancing or protesting, to do it with an open heart. Anything that's against something is doomed to fail. But if we're putting our efforts for something, we're giving the cosmos something to bless. Remember that as we go through our lives. Are we a blessing in this moment? Or are we cursing in this moment? It is a vulnerable place to be, to open one's heart. It is scary. The benefit we get from that is the light of our own true nature begins to shine. There's a Thich Nhat Hanh prayer I'm about to recite for you guys. It goes, may I be at peace. May my heart remain open. May I awaken to the light of my own true nature. May I be healed. May I be a source of healing for all beings. I've Williamanized it. to may I be at peace. May my heart remain open. May I awaken to the light of my own true nature. May I be whole. May I be a source of wholeness for all beings. And I've said this prayer thousands of times. And there's a logical progression to it. You know, before my heart can open and I can discover the light of my own true nature, I have to find some kind of peace. And how can I find some kind of peace in a world that's, wrought with conflict? This is a decision we make for ourselves. Even though there's 1,000 reasons and 1,000 things that I can find that are wrong, that can keep me from peace, how can I choose to have peace? We have a vagus nerve. As your attorney, I advise you to find out more about that. But through tapping and through touch, we can calm ourselves into peace. I oftentimes find something to be grateful for to bring me into peace. Because it's hard to access the light of our own true nature and open our hearts when we're angry, when we're afraid, when we're in conflict. And those things are out of our control. There's always going to be things out of our control, but to take that one moment and try to find peace so that we can open our hearts, so that we begin to feel the blessings within, and then reach out by looking lovingly upon our world. I'm going to recite a story right now, and it's something that I saw in a dream, and it's kind of cheesy, which made me recite the cheese poem today. This poem is called The Monk and the Flower Garden, if you're willing to follow me on a journey in words. High up on an alpine meadowed plain, ushers forth a spring from deep within the earth, forming a still pool, trickling off into a stream, becoming a river, and flowing into the ocean. And so it is. Up high on an alpine meadowed plain, ushers forth a spring from deep within the earth, forming a still pool, trickling off into a stream. And sitting next to this still pool is a monk, sitting serenely, smiling gently. And the lines on the sides of his eyes cannot hide the thousands of smiles and multitudes of laughter it took to put them there. And this monk is exactly where he wants to be, for it is spring. And the birds are singing and choosing mates and building nests, and the flowers are blooming, and the snakes are slithering, and the dragonflies are dragonflying, and all this life is taking place around him uneditedly. And he's sitting there next to this pool, and he's just soaking it all in. And as he sits there in his meditation, a stray thought comes across the back of his mind. And he imagines the monastery in the valley below. And he thinks about it for a moment, and he lets it pass as he does many thoughts, like clouds crossing his mind. And he's sitting there again, soaking in the vibrant life and all the beauty around him, and just how this time of year is so special and so precious. And he's feeling it. He's vibing it. And then once again, across the back of his mind comes an image of the monastery in the valley below. And he finds this a little disturbing because, he wants to have his moment. And he thinks, let that pass. And he goes back into his meditation in that cozy place. And then once again, across the back of his mind, he gets an image of the monastery below. And this monk has taken an oath to be of service to life. And right now, life is telling him there's something he needs to do in the monastery in the valley below, and he does not want to go. He doesn't want to leave this place. And he thinks to himself, I'll sit here for the afternoon, and I'll watch the sun set, and I'll watch the light reflect across the pool, whose surface is so smooth it reflects all the color that shines upon it. And then perhaps this evening, we'll see. And he sits and he watches the moon, or the sun set, and the colors dance. And he's still feeling like he's called to go to the monastery below in the valley. And so as the sun sets and it begins to get dark, he goes back to his cave to procure provisions for his journey down off the mountain. Are you with me? I just got lost. He grabs a staff and a sack full of provisions, and he's picking his way down the narrow trail coming down off the mountain. And after a while, the trail widens a little bit, and he reaches the valley floor to the road that goes to the monastery, and he's walking the road through the night. And he sees the farmhouses, thinks about the farmers sleeping. And he arrives at the monastery in the hour before dawn. And in front of the monastery is a flower garden. And he's thinking, should I ring the bell? Should I rap on the gate? Should I wake everyone up and let them know I'm here? And he thinks he remembers when he was a monk there and how hard they worked and how precious those last few minutes of sleep are, before the bell rings and you have to get up. And he felt it would just be rude to rap on the gate or ring the bell. So he decides to wait it out in the flower garden. And he sits down on a stone, cold bench. And he can feel the coolness of the sweat in his garments as the morning comes on, and he starts to admire the flower garden. He notices how the rocks are meticulously hewn, how all the bushes are trimmed, how all the flowers are planted, and it's remarkable because he just came from this wild meadow where everything was just crazy and beautiful and unkept and alive and vibrant. And he looks over to the corner and he sees a rose bush. And it's spring's going on. It's in the middle of spring. And he notices this rose bush, all of its buds are tightly wound. And he remarks about how the leaves on the rose bush are forbidding looking. I mean, they're like green spades. And he's noticing the rose bush is just all tied up and it has these just jagged, curved thorns. And he's, wondering what's up with this rose bush. And he thinks, well, I'm sure when the sun comes, it'll roll across the rim of the earth and it'll hit the rose bush and the rose bush will bloom and I'll get to smell that. That'll be great. And he sits there and he's, being patient. He's a very patient man. And the sun comes rolling across the curvature of the earth, touching everything as it does. And there comes that dew point in the morning where it seems like all the plants just have a breath. There's like a smell, a fragrance to the dew point of the morning. And this rose bush is not budging. It's not doing anything. And so he walks over to the rose bush and he says, "Rose bush, why are you not blooming?" And the rose bush says, "Why should we take a chance? How could we put ourselves in that situation of being vulnerable? Maybe the sun won't shine on me." And he says, "Most truly I say to you, the sun is shining on you now. Open up and feel the glory of the sun. You're worthy of this." And one tiny little bud opens up, and it says, "Oh my God, it's so beautiful." And then bud after bud open up, and this rose bush blooms. And the monk breathes it in, and he laughs, and he cries, and he dances. And without a rapping of the gate or a tolling of the bell, the monk turns around and walks up to his high alpine meadowed plain, which ushers forth a spring from deep within the earth, forming a still pool, trickling off into a stream, becoming a river, and flowing into the ocean. All it takes is one of us to open our hearts and love, to give permission for everyone else to do so. And in that, in a very practical way, by finding that peace and opening our hearts, we get to live with open hearts. It's possible to keep an open heart even through difficult times. I've noticed in my life, especially with the passing of my mom, the big test was, can I go into this with just an open heart? Can I let go of the resentments about her religion and my childhood and all this and just go in with an open heart and be of service? And what I got was I got a lack of resentment, a lack of anger, a lack of bitterness, and I got to show up and be of service. I get to be a place of grace. We're all capable of this. We're all capable of looking at the mountains and seeing majesty. We're all capable of blessing the world we live in, even if we don't agree with it. I exhort you in your life to practice having an open heart. Yeah. I want to recite another poem real quick. And maybe I'll do a talk on this poem, and I don't know why I'm doing this right now, but I'm going to do it anyway. A drop of water forms in the heavens, coalescing and cascading down through the air, imploding into the ocean like a 0 points implosion, sending forth a splash, which rises a pillar of water straight into the sky. And just when this natural flow begins to slow, just when this momentum stops, another drop bursts forth free, hovering there in the air for a moment. And in this moment of separation, this little drop of water looks out upon the ocean and says, "Oh my God, it's so beautiful." And I want to say, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful. It's your birthright. Open your heart. Let your light shine. Shine, baby, shine. We're worthy of nothing less than that." And so it is.